Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. Exciting weekend thus far in the wild card round. What should the Niners take away from this weekend? We will hit that coming up next. But we are brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Tell them that Krug sent you. And of course, we're also brought to you by MarinAutoglass.com. MarinAutoglass.com, 415-883-3030, and Underdog Fantasy. Check that link in the description. Use the promo Krug, and they'll match you up to your first $100. All right, what should be learned or gleaned? What can the Niners specifically take away from Wild Card Weekend? Well, one thing that we've learned so far is that it is good to be at home in the playoffs. The Lions, the Texans, and the Chiefs, 3 out of the 4 home teams this weekend have already won. So it's good to be home, and home field advantage means something in the playoffs. I think that is absolutely true. But I'll tell you the other theme that really has been comes screaming out to me is just youth is being served. And if young talent rules the day, when I'm talking about young talent, we're talking about the youngest players in the league, 22, 23, 24. The teams that are left standing here have cores of young talent that is really, really impressive. And the really youngest talent, I mean, every team, take Green Bay. They put up 48. They were up 48-16 at one point on the Dallas Cowboys in Arlington in Jerry's World, and they win 48-32. That 48-32 was like they won 48-32, and it wasn't even that close. It was that kind of a day. And if you look at Green Bay, I mean, what young talent they have. Jordan Love is 25. Romeo Doubs, 23, star player. Luke Musgrave, tight end, rookie, 23. Dontavian Wicks is having a great month. He's 22. Tucker Kraft, the other tight end, is actually a legitimate number 1 tight end. They have 2 true number 1 young tight ends. Tucker Kraft is 23. Christian Watson's 24. Bo Melton is a terrific player. He's 24. Jaden Reed had 100 yards last week, didn't even do anything in this Dallas game. He's a major talent, the former Michigan State star. He's 23. And then on defense, Quay Walker, their leading tackler, 23. Kingsley Inagbare, the linebacker who had like 3 hits on the quarterback, he's 23. So the Packers are young, man, and they traded up. Brian Gutekunst traded up for Jordan Love. He took a lot of criticism. Now here we are a few years in, and Jordan Love, 21 touchdowns and 1 pick, and I think his last 11 games. He is the hottest quarterback in football right now. He's athletic. He's got a strong arm. He's in a good system. He's surrounded by a great play caller. They've got young weapons. They've grown together. The Packers are a problem for the 49ers next Saturday night. I'm not saying they're going to beat the Niners, but they are a problem today and into the future. Imagine a year from now, 2 years from now, how good this team is going to be with all these young weapons and young Jordan Love in lockstep with these guys practicing day after day after day after day. Green Bay is coming. So the Niners better get it done this week because Green Bay in a year from now is going to be even better. So that was the first. Whoa! Look at the young talent that Brian Gutekunst has gathered together in Green Bay, and then their defensive front. Also, Devin Wyatt, young guy. I mean, they've got some big. Carl Brooks, 6th-round pick out of Bowling Green. He's a nice defensive lineman. Green Bay has a lot of talent, and a lot of it's really young, and they're getting better every game. So that they are a problem. Make no mistake about it. The Niners obviously will take them very seriously, but they are a major problem. 5:15, by the way, Saturday night at Levi's, Niners-Packers in the division round. All right, let's get to Houston. They were incredibly impressive over the weekend. 45-14, they beat the Browns. 2 pick sixes against Joe Flacco. JOK was the only Brown defender who really showed up, and he was awesome, by the way, man. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah was fantastic in that game for the most part. But the Texans, CJ Stroud is 22 years old, and he's playing amazing football. And if you look at what they got in the Deshaun Watson trade, they're going to wind up with 12 players, like 7 starters. I mean, that was maybe the greatest fleecing. We talk about the Herschel Walker trade. The Deshaun Watson trade has set up the Texans every bit as well as the Herschel Walker trade set up the Cowboys, who dominated the decade of the 1990s. So watch out for the Texans. CJ Stroud, Damian Pierce. I mean, Stroud's 22, Pierce is 23. Nico Collins is a monster. He's 24. Brevin Jordan is a phenomenal movement tight end. Loved him at Miami. He's 22 years old. 23. Christian Harris, who was maybe the best player on the field. Christian Harris, the former Alabama linebacker this weekend, was freaking amazing. That was like, I thought I was watching LT. He was awesome. The guy was sacking the quarterback. He scored a touchdown. He's making tackles. He's 22. Jalen Petrie, the young safety they have, 24. Derek Stingley, the blue chip top 10 corner they have, the son of Darryl Stingley, the great Patriot. Derek Stingley, who's a phenomenal corner, probably one of the top 10 in the league. He's 22. Will Anderson, coming off the edge, he's 22. So youth is being served. And then you look at Detroit. Detroit beat the Rams 24-23. Goff gets his revenge. But, man, look at Detroit's best players. Jahmyr Gibbs is 21. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who caught the game clincher, 24. Sam Laporta's 23. Aiden Hutchinson's 23. Brian Branch is 22. These are the youngest players in the league. And they're making huge waves on Wild Card Weekend. And then even you look at Kansas City and you go, well, they're the old hand, right? Reed and Mahomes has been in the league a number of years, and Kelsey. Yeah, but look who stepped up today or this weekend for Kansas City. Rashee Rice stepped up. When they needed to have a receiver step up, Rashee Rice did it. He's 23. Who's their big star on offense? It's Isaiah Pacheco. He's 24. And if you looked at their best players on defense, it was Nick Bolton. He's 23. And it's the kid from Purdue, George Karlaftis. He's 22 as well. So, I mean, Kansas City got a huge contribution from some really young players. My point is just that Wild Card Weekend so far has not been – it's not been – Joe Flacco is the veteran who had won a lot in the playoffs. He's at home. Matthew Stafford's the veteran, man. He played great. He's got the Super Bowl ring. He's at home. A lot of these veteran teams, Tua Tagovailoa is not an old player. He just didn't get it done. But overall, Packers are really young and impressive. Lions are really young and impressive. Texans are incredibly young and incredibly impressive. Chiefs, young talent, kind of led the way this weekend. The youngest players, these guys are 22, 23, 24. So those are the guys who you're winning with. So I think the lesson for the 49ers is just simply, yeah, you're losing Adam Peters this week, but man, college scouting and building almost exclusively through the draft and going with young players is the way to go. You want to find one guy here, another guy there in free agency that can make you, over the top, push you over the top, maybe one guy a year free agent. Other than that, you got to be thinking draft. Hit on day 1, hit on day 2, hit on day 3, sign good players after the draft, keep being really, really good in the draft, because that's what's going on right now across this league. Brett Veach is a hell of a GM in Kansas City. The Lions GM, Hopkins, is a really bright young GM. Packers, Gutekunst, really good GM. These teams are hitting in the draft. And the Texans, my goodness. The Texans are just, fantastic. I mean, to me, the most impressive team of the weekend in some ways was the Houston Texans. I mean, yeah, they were at home, but, I mean, you're talking about, incredible defensive end talent. And it's like, who is the general manager of the Houston Texans? It's Nick Caserio. You say, who's Nick Caserio? Oh, yeah, that guy that was with Bill Belichick and was like kind of the key behind the drafting of the players that were the dynasty of the New England Patriots. Casario had a lot to do with that Patriot dynasty, and he's off to a roaring start in Houston with D'Amico Ryans. So very impressive weekend. A lot of exciting young teams. If anything, it's, I feel good about the 49ers for having the rest, but man, 49ers, I mean, Brock's a really young player, and, but it's time for them to go. It's time for them to make it happen. There's a lot of young up and coming teams that are building up, and the 49ers have their window, and it looks like the road is going to be, you get Green Bay, and if you can somehow beat Green Bay at home, you're probably going to get the Lions in the NFC Championship game. Two really tough young teams, who have their flaws, but they're not going to roll over and die. And Dan Campbell's got his team really believing, and Green Bay's so young that they don't realize where they're at. So they're just kind of locked in. So the 49ers are really going to have to play well the next couple of weeks if they want to go to Las Vegas. But very interesting wild card round. And I thought there would be a theme that emerged, and clearly it's the youth. When you look at the Lions and the Packers and the Texans and what really fueled the Chiefs to victory, we're talking about some of the youngest players in the league, and you got to hit in the draft. And it will be easily the biggest happening for the 49ers was losing Adam Peters so far this month. That's big news. How do they replace him? Can they keep kicking butt in the draft? Because the Niners are, I think, doing free agency really well, and they're doing really well in the draft. Heck, they've got Brock. They're the team that unearthed Brock Purdy in the final round, and so many gems, it seems like, in the late rounds, day 3 and after the draft. But how much of that was Adam Peters? How much of that was John Lynch? Can the Niners continue to do that? All I would say after watching Wild Card Weekend is they'd better, because some of these young teams are growing up and are going to be really, really good in the next 2 or 3 years. All right. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Underdog Fantasy. Check that link in the description. Use the promo code Krug, Krueg, and they'll match you up to your first $100. Thanks to all you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.